Chaksunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine Panchakapatarabhyascha Kripasindhu Vaivaccha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. May the entire universe be blessed with peace and good hope. May everyone driven by envy and enmity become pacified and reconciled. May all living beings develop abiding concern for the welfare of others. May our own hearts and minds be filled with purity and serenity. May all these blessings flow naturally from this supreme benediction. May our attention become spontaneously absorbed in the rapture of love unto the transcendent Lord. Hare Krishna. This is a sort of a free translation of a prayer from Prahlad Maharaj that's in the 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we've been talking about harmonizing. Oh, does this have to be right here? Could it be? Maybe it could be here, then I could see everyone's faces. Is that all right? We've been talking about harmonizing the energies of these different chakras. Harmonizing our sympathetic vibration, like a tambura or a sitar, those sympathetic strings just play by themselves. So, harmonizing our sympathetic vibration with the dominant vibration of divinity, if we can access that. And to me, this is about accessing the treasures of the gift of the feminine voice, of the treasure, actually, that we have so buried deep down, right? We have to put our herbs of our feminine voice in this oil so that they just pop open and smile. What did you call Kalinja? The sunny one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they can become the sunny ones. So today we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the next two. Yesterday we talked about the root chakra, the tribal energy, and I made the point that that's about harmonizing trust, like the baby who gets held and has to feel that. How did you put it, Kelly? Being trusted for my authentic self, being honored for my authentic self. That's what the baby needs, right? And then they can grow up and go out. So today we're going to talk about that baby's growing a little bigger. The baby is starting to now, because the second chakra. So this is the second chakra. This is called in Sanskrit Svadhisthana, her special abode, which I think is beautiful. It's from the lower abdomen to the navel area. The color is orange. And the energy centers in the body, that it represents the sexual organs, the pelvis, the hip area. It's about discovering partnerships and relationships with others. So I feel like in this metaphor of the baby is starting to create language. She's starting to say mama, dada, and so the baby is now moving from trust to like a place of creativity, beginning to recognize that others exist outside of herself. It's not just all about me, right? She begins to create language, to talk, to create relationships, partnerships. Sometimes the creativity is creative projects, creative endeavors. lessons related to sexuality, work, physical desire, and creativity. So I just want to interject something here. What I'd like to do is, I hope this won't be confusing, but what I'd like to do is discuss this second chakra and share my thoughts, and then have a little pause for you to kind of like assess what comes up for you, and then move on to the third chakra, and then have our discussion after that. Is that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Okay. So, yeah. The second chakra is about harmonizing the energies of the sacral chakra, stimulating our creativity. I can try, and if you can move closer, that would be great too. Unless that's too hard, I can try to speak louder. So remember, when we talked about the first chakra, there was this unified energy of the first chakra represented by the tribal mind, right? We're all together, we're all in this together, we all think alike. This is the way we do it in this tribe, right? But then in the second, moving into the second chakra, the energy becomes divided into polarities. The yin-yang, the male-female, the sun-moon, faith and fear. And there comes like an energy of choice, these polarities, which are sometimes often very confusing, right? So choice is born of these kinds of opposites. And this is the duality of the second chakra, challenging us to make choices in a world of opposing dualities, different sides, different opinions, different, and different. Everybody's like, wow, especially today, right? Everybody's got an opinion on everything, I'm on this committee right now called the Sabha, which is an advisory committee to the ISKCON GBC. When I first went into this committee, I was so shocked because everybody had an opinion about everything. And I was like, I don't have an opinion about everything. Some things I really don't have an opinion about. But there was always this polarity, So, so choice is born of opposites. And, the duality of the second chakra, making choices in a world of opposing dualities, opposing opinions, different sides. So this is when the little girl becomes an individual and begins to recognize an existence of others outside of herself. It's about our need to control our external lives, about authority, about other people, money, creativity, sensuality, the fertility of ideas, and sexual energy. So the fears maybe, or the shadow side of this chakra may be the fear of loss of control, or fear of being controlled by someone else. Also, it has a lot to do with body shaming, which is a big deal for women in this world, right? Maybe in the Western world, maybe everywhere in the world, right? And when we put our faith in fear, it brings destructive results. So choosing, will I put my faith in fear, and will I allow myself to be dominated by the power of events or conditions such as addiction, rape, betrayal, impotence, financial loss, abandonment by my primary partner or my professional colleague, fear of loss of power of the physical body. All of these are the poles of the down poles of the second chakra, the lower poles of the ego, right? Me versus everybody else, me versus them, you versus the world, seeing other people as objects. It's about me, gossip, manipulation. These are all the lower poles, right? gossip, manipulation, potential for conflict that just drains our energy away, right? And what are the strengths? So the strengths may be our ability or our stamina to survive financially or physically on our own, to defend and protect ourselves. The fight or flight instinct was mentioned earlier today. The ability to take risks, not having to sell oneself, the energy of self-sufficiency. So these are all the strengths, right? The resilience from loss, the power to come back, to bounce back, the power to rebel and establish a life, personal and professional decision-making abilities and talents. And then what's the invitation or the sacred truth connected with this chakra? To honor one another. To honor one another, to not exploit. It's an invitation to learn to interact consciously and fairly with others. And I think this is a really important point. In seeking relationships, to try to become the person that the person you're looking for is looking for. Try to become the person that the person you're looking for is looking for. So if you're looking for Mr. Right or Mr. Perfect, not that we want to try to become perfect, but try to become that stand-up woman who such a person would want to be in a relationship, right? It's about learning to make the right choices as an invitation to our growth or our evolution on the spiritual path. So I really feel like each one of these chakras, it's like a journey or an evolution through these chakras from the tribal chakra going up, and to me it's very much a meditation on evolving to our higher spiritual self and voice. So choices based on knowledge and faith that help us access Krishna's grace, because choices based on fear just deplete our energy, it's like a hole in the bucket, Choices based on fear, just like that hole in the bucket, the energy is seeping out, just flowing out, flowing down, and we feel so depleted. So I wanted to share a little story. There's a story I read about a woman, a young woman with 2 small children, and her husband died very suddenly and very tragically. And she just felt like she had no marketable skills. She didn't have a degree in anything. She'd never worked, in the world. She didn't do this or do that or the other thing. And she just felt completely lost. And she was, just thinking what to do. How could she survive? How could she support her two little girls? And so she, and this is about accessing the creative self or accessing the creative voice. So she started planting flowers in a garden with the thought that, I found this so beautiful. She's planting flowers in a garden with the intention that I am planting a future for my children. So she was planting a creative idea for herself and planting with each flower, with each seed, with each little plant she put in, she was planting a future for her children and herself. So then mystically, because this is the way things happen in the world, so she was good at sewing. She liked sewing. And so someone from the local area, there was I don't know if it was a university drama troupe or something, but whoever was supposed to do the costumes got ill and couldn't make the costumes. So one of this young woman's friends knew that she sewed, and so, someone from this drama, this production came and said, we're in a pinch. Can you help with the costumes? So she started making the costumes in the absence of the person who was supposed to do it. And she was doing such a beautiful job with so much expertise and, innovating the patterns. I'm thinking of Krishna over there. She's innovating the patterns and making things, tweaking things a little bit better. And so what happened was, she did such a beautiful job that this turned into a whole career for her. So it's just a beautiful story, I think, about, how that energy can go down and deplete us when it goes into fear. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? But she just started planting these intentions, which is so beautiful. So I'd say that the invitation of this, the harmonization of the creative energies of this chakra, it's an invitation to act ethically. We were talking quite a bit yesterday about Dharma, so an invitation to live our righteous Dharma, to form unions with others who support our development, and to release relationships that handicap our growth, and to attract to ourselves relationships that help us come to know ourselves better. And I think this is a really beautiful point also, understanding relationships as spiritual messengers, or circumstance, as why is this happening to me right now, or why did this person come into the purview of my life right now, So understanding relationships and circumstance as spiritual messengers, revealing our own strengths and weaknesses, and helping us grow as individuals. So this is the beginning of the growth of ourselves as an individual. And it's said that we often attract people who are opposite to us in some way, because people who often have something to teach us. People who are very opposite of us, and the idea that nothing is random. The idea of people who are different complement each other, and we can learn from each other. So here's some questions that may come up when we're thinking about this chakra, this harmonizing our creative energy. Do my creative energies turn into negative paths of expression? Do you ever exaggerate or embellish facts to support your point of view?
Could you go a little slower?
What's that?
Could you go a little slower?
Yeah, sorry. Like sometimes that might happen in the office. People like pad up their resume, Do I ever exaggerate or embellish facts to support my point of view or my position, or, who's going to know, right? Just fudge a little bit here, Did you ever do this? Oh, sure, I know about it. But men do that more. Men do that more.
They also have the confidence to do it more, and women, even if they have the qualifications, discount themselves.
Right. Yeah.
We're talking about the Senate back here.
What's that?
We're talking about the Senate back here.
Yeah. So do you ever use people for sexual pleasure? Or do you ever feel used? Have you ever felt used? Do you ever feel used? Are you strong enough to honor your boundaries? Do you keep your word? Do you engage in power play in relationships? Are you a controlling person? Remember we were talking about how Krishna he's the supreme controller, he's omnipotent, but he enjoys being defeated. But we little tiny jivas, we like to control people, we like to control time, we like to control other people, we like to control time, circumstance. It's so interesting. But I think as we advance in bhakti, we're able to give that up, little by little, yeah? So let's see. Does money have authority over you? Do you violate your inner self for financial security? Do you have goals that you haven't ventured to try to pursue? I always wanted to learn how to play the harmonium, but what stands in the way? This is something interesting that I love. It's a little story about Albert Einstein, that after he won the Nobel Prize, he was in a hotel in Japan, and he wrote a little note on a napkin, on one of the hotel napkins and he handed it to the bellman who came to his room. And it said, here's what the note said. I love this. He says, a calm and modest life brings more happiness than the pursuit of success combined with constant restlessness. Isn't that profound? From the winner of the Nobel Prize. So then more from Einstein, because I think he had a lot of realizations on these points. So he said that nothing is random. And the use of creative power can be destructive also. He was a futurist, really, and he could see what could happen by the misuse of technology and science. So creative power has the potential for destruction also. So he said, Emily and I were discussing, we were discussing this in the car, yeah? So he said that the most important question you can ask is if the world is a friendly place. Because if we decide that the universe is an unfriendly place, then we will use our technology, our scientific discoveries, and our natural resources to achieve safety and power by creating bigger walls to keep out the unfriendliness and bigger weapons to destroy all that which is unfriendly. And then this, I think this part's really famous. More people are familiar with this part that he said. He said, if we decide that the universe is neither friendly nor unfriendly, and that God is essentially playing dice with the universe, then we're simply victims of the random toss of the dice, and our lives have no real purpose or meaning. But if we decide that the universe is a friendly place, then we will use our technology, our scientific discoveries, and our natural resources to create tools and models for understanding that universe, because power and safety will come through understanding its workings and its motives. So this is so holistic, this is what I think a lot of what's going on here in this beautiful retreat. So that's something to think about. So then here's a little bit more that reminds me of this chakra. This is something from the great Catholic teacher, Thomas Merton. He said, love is not a matter of getting what you want. Quite the contrary. The insistence on always getting, always being satisfied, always being fulfilled. Doesn't that sound like a little child, like a little 2-year-old? It's about me, it's all about me, right? The insistence on always getting, always being satisfied, always being fulfilled makes love impossible. Then he says, to love, we have to climb out of the cradle where everything is about getting and grow up to the maturity of giving without concern for getting anything special in return. Thomas Merton. To me, this is about bhakti. This is like, I'm going to offer this flower, and Krishna may appear, he may not appear, he may never appear, but I'm every day, to me, this is like very much traditional India. The India that I saw when I went there first in 1972. I offer this flower every day. I may never get any reciprocation. I just keep, it's just very beautiful. To me, it's beautiful. So then I wanted to share this little story that I love a lot about the Emperor Akbar. So he was very religious, and he was sitting in the courtyard of his mosque one day, reading his Quran very religiously, and peacefully, probably at around this time of day. And this kind of crazy woman went tearing through the courtyard of the mosque. You know this story? She's this young woman, and she goes like running through, and she's like kind of yelling, and where are you? Where are you? Where did you go? Where did you go? And like, kind of the where is my beloved thing, right? And so he was so shocked. This is the emperor. This is like the king, right? And so he had his guards go and grab her. Who the hell do you think you are? This is the emperor. You're tearing through this courtyard. I'm very religiously reading my Quran, and you're disturbing me. So they pulled her up to him, the big emperor, and she's very respectful. She's, please forgive me. I forgot myself, and my lover left me, and I was just like crazed, like missing him, searching for him, and I just didn't notice the emperor sitting here, and please forgive me. And the Akbar was so wise, and in his wisdom, he understood that she was having some symptoms of spontaneous love, right? Even though maybe it was kind of material, right? But here he is religiously like a rules and regulations type of devotee. He's reading his Quran, but where is the love? Where is his spontaneous love? And he realizes that she had a lot to teach him. So, so the interplay of ego and, who we think we are, what we think we know. So those are my thoughts on the second chakra. So the third chakra is called Manipura, which means the city of the shining jewel. It's the solar plexus, so that's above the navel, below the ribs. It's kind of the gut, when you have a gut instinct about something. So this is the chakra of talking about harmonizing the energy of the third chakra is about strengthening our self-confidence. It's the chakra of personal power in relation to the world, and the color is yellow. Strengthening our self-confidence. So following this metaphor of the little child, the child is beginning to act in the world. First, the child is just being held, loved, and learning trust. Next, the child is beginning to create language, to imitate language, to create words. And now the child's beginning to act with others in the world. So these are lessons related to the ego, our personality, our self-esteem, personal power in relation to the external world. And it's kind of a passage place from childhood moving into bigger, growing toward adulthood and developing an identity separate or apart from the tribal self. And the organs that are connected with this chakra are the stomach, the pancreas, the liver, the adrenals. And the fears may be fears of rejection, criticism, looking foolish, failing in general, failing to meet our responsibilities, fears about my physical appearance, obesity, baldness, aging, fears that other people may discover my inner secrets, the inner chatter, the monkey mind, self-pity. So then the strengths may be honoring our personal values, self-esteem, self-respect, self-discipline, being fair to oneself, integrity, endurance. Who was talking the other day about, reading, when we were talking about memoirs, about reading these memoirs of like during World War II, and people are like surviving in the Arctic, and they have to eat their dogs, right?
Right.
Yeah, you know. And I think there's a book actually called Endurance. We have it at home. But I think they didn't lose a single guy on that mission. I mean, there were no women, right? But they didn't lose a single guy.
In Unbroken, correct.
Yeah, that's the name of it, Unbroken.
Unbroken is the book.
Wow.
Can you look at the strengths, please?
Yeah. So honoring our personal values, self-esteem, self-respect, self-discipline, being fair to oneself, integrity, endurance, ambition, faith in oneself helps develop our intuition about what's right and what's wrong, what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, and the powers of the unseen world. And I was talking today with someone about how Prabhupada said Prabhupada said this, there was this one devotee who was all about preach. His whole life was preach. And Prabhupada wrote him a letter with so many, discussions about this, that, and the other thing about distributing the books and this and that. At the end of the letter, Prabhupada wrote, by the way, the highest realization is to save oneself, which was so amazing, because it's like, if we don't save ourselves, how can we save anyone? Like, right? Put on the mask before you put it on your baby. So, yeah. Intuition and the power to understand the unseen, right? The ability to handle a crisis, the courage to take risks, generosity, ethics. And again, what we were just talking about the second chakra. So again, with this chakra, it's about trying to create an ethical dharmic life. And having the strength of character to do that. Cooperation with others. It's the center place for organizing ideas, motivation, transformation. And what's the invitation, or what could we say is the sacred truth? To honor oneself, to act with integrity to my own values, right? Nobody's gonna mess with my values. I have my boundaries, and nobody's gonna force me or, tempt me to betray those values. So it's an invitation to die to old habits and self-images in order to be reborn into the new woman that we want to be, reborn into this voice of the gift of that voice. And it's not about what we choose, but why we choose something that matters more. I think that's really a beautiful point and really, really important. It's not, really in one sense, it doesn't really matter what we choose, but why we choose it matters more. And are we making choices based on our values? Or are our choices based on faith, or are they based on fear? So yeah, fear is that down energy, and faith is that uplifting, that connects us with intuition and our higher self and higher angels really coming in, right? Okay, so here's some questions.
Oops, hold on, turn the page.
Okay, they're kind of fat pages, right? Okay, do you like yourself? Do you respect yourself? Are you working to change the things about yourself that you don't like? Am I honest? Am I falling into criticism, being critical of other people? And if so, if I do that, why do I keep doing that? Why do I keep falling into that negative pattern of being critical of other people? Am I able to admit when I'm wrong? Nothing more powerful than that vulnerability when we can go to someone else and say, I'm so sorry, I was so wrong. And I'm so sorry that I didn't show up for you, or that I said this, or I did, it's very transformative, right? Have you ever been in a relationship with someone you didn't really love and it seemed better than being alone? Are you afraid of responsibility? Or do you feel responsible for everyone and everything? I want to share this little story. There was this man, he was from the Navajo people, Native American tribe from the Southwest. And they have their secret, they have their Navajo language. So it ended up that during World War II, they were able to be used as sending codes that no one could understand. No one could break their codes because they were speaking in their own language, which no one in the world understood. So there was this man, as the story goes, like he had been like a merchant seaman before that, before getting drafted in the military. And he made friends with a German guy who was also a merchant seaman. They kind of became friends. Anyway, then he's drafted into the service in World War II. He becomes one of these code keepers. And then he got it's a really sad story, and I'm not going to tell you all the details because it'll break your heart. But he got captured by the Nazis, and he was put in a concentration camp. And because they considered him to be an inferior race, they were just going to kill him. But he happened to run into this man, that friend of his, that was now in the German military. And this man somehow negotiated that this Navajo man, that his life would be saved. But he was tortured in that prison camp. I'm not going to tell you how because it's just too heartbreaking. So he was tortured, and then afterwards, so he lived through this torture. Afterwards, he was in a military hospital, and he was in a coma for a really, really long time, like 9 months or 12 months or something, just in a coma in this military hospital. Finally, he was sent back to his native place, and there's so much wisdom in the native people, you know? And this kind of reminds me of, I mentioned yesterday about my friend from Ethiopia, Kunti. You know how they hold each other, that when someone is acting out from addiction or some kind of trauma, they physically hold that person and say, where have we failed you that you're acting out like this? So it's our problem, it's not your problem. So anyway, he was sent back to his native place, and his tribe, really, they surrounded him. I mean, he had come back to consciousness, but they surrounded him and held him and told him, I love this, they told him, call your spirit back. He was, I'm not going to tell you what the Nazis did to him, but he was unable to walk. He was unable to stand. And so they told him, call your spirit back. And they put him in the river, and they tied ropes around his waist, and you walk. Now you walk. And it's a really amazing story. And he actually became a shaman. He became a great healer. He's no longer living, but he became a shaman and a great healer. But he was, inspired by that tribe, that you call your spirit back. So I think this is a beautiful instruction for us all. Call your spirit back from whatever that fear is, whatever that divisive energy is, whatever that down energy is, right? So here's a nice quote from the great Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh, who I love. He says, fear keeps us focused on the past or worried about the future. If we can acknowledge our fear, we can realize that right now, I am okay. Right now, today, we are still alive. Our bodies are still working marvelously. Our eyes can still see the beautiful sky. Our ears can hear the voices of our loved ones, hear the birds, right? So, yeah. So that fear of the future, lamentation of the past, this is very much Bhagavad Gita philosophy, right? And then here's something from the great Christian teacher, C.S. Lewis. He says, if a man or woman's self is not kept clean and bright, his or her glimpses of God will be blurred like the moon seen through a dirty telescope. And And then here's something nice from another one of my favorite Middle Eastern teachers, Hafez. And this is about loneliness. You know, do I sell myself out just to be with someone who I don't really love, just so I won't be by myself? Okay, so here's what he says on loneliness. Don't surrender your loneliness so quickly. Let it cut more deep. Let it ferment and season you as few human or even divine ingredients can. Like those herbs in the bottle, right? With the oil, right? Something missing in my heart tonight has made my eyes so soft, my voice so tender, my need of God absolutely clear. And we'll journey back again to Thomas Merton. He says, I think this is very much third chakra. He says, my Lord God, I have no idea where I'm going. I do not see the road ahead of me. I cannot know for certain where it will end, nor do I really know myself. And the fact that I think I am following your will does not mean that I am actually doing so. But I believe, and this is really bhakti too, I think, but I believe that the desire to please you does in fact please you. And I hope I have that desire in all that I'm doing. I hope that I will never do anything apart from that desire. And I know that if I do this, you will lead me by the right road, though I may know nothing about it, right? Like that, we were talking yesterday about that gratification of knowing, you know, how's this going to end? Where is it going to go? Therefore, I will trust you always, though I may seem to be lost and in the shadow of death. I will not fear, for you are ever with me, and you will never leave me to face my perils alone. Nice, right? So then, I think we've got time that I can share this story about Sita Devi, back to the Treta Yuga. So there's this story of when Hanuman came. So here's Sita, kidnapped by Ravana. She's barely hanging on to her life. She just, you know, if Ram doesn't come, I'm just going to die, right? So then she's in this Ashoka grove. These Ashoka trees those are the trees that got planted in Nanda Maharaj, got cursed to stand as trees in Nanda Maharaj court. So they're these very tall, straight trees. And so this is the Garden of Ashoka. It represents the Garden of Lamentation, where she's just, you know, she can barely live. And so then Hanuman shows up with this ring that Ram sent. I know you'll find Sita, and this is my ring. And when you show her this ring, she'll know that you're my messenger, you're my emissary. So Hanuman, you know, he's very strong and feisty. Pitta, maybe we could say Hanuman, very Pitta energy, you know. So anyway, you know, he finds her, and she's so happy, and she's got some sense of hope now. And so then Hanuman just tells her, he says, from his Pitta energy, he says, remember, he's the son of the wind god. He's like, well, that's Vata, right? But anyway, he's Pitta pretty much. Well, I guess he's Vata and Pitta. Anyway, so he says, you know, all these Rakshasis, that means a lady kind of demoness, who are tormenting you, who are surrounding you in this garden, you know, because Ravana was cursed that if he ever took a woman by force, if he ever tried to rape a woman by force, he would die. So she had to acquiesce, or all the women in his harem were women who had, you know, accepted his advances. So Hanuman, she wasn't about to do that, obviously, right? So these servants of Ravana, these women servants of Ravana are tormenting her and torturing her and saying, come on, you're wasting your time. You could be with Ravana. Why are you waiting for this useless Ram? He's never going to come. And they're just like, you know, circling around her, tormenting her. And so Hanuman tells her, I could kill all these Rakshasis in a minute, I'll just kill them all. They've been torturing you. And Sita said, no, Hanuman. So Sita's all about like righteous dharma, right? So she goes, no, Hanuman. And she tells him a story. She says, I'm not like that cruel hunter. And Hanuman said, what cruel hunter? And so she tells him the story of this. Okay, so I'm going to try to remember this as best I can. So there's this hunter. He's out hunting in the jungle. Maybe a jungle something like this, right? And he's hunting. He's out with his bow and arrow, ancient times. And he starts to get this feeling that there's some presence behind him. So he turns around and he sees there's a tiger behind him. So he just like finds the nearest tree and just like really fast like tries to scurry up this tree, right? And so he climbs this tree, and then he sees that in this tree, Ashley was talking about bears, right? In this tree, so on the branch above him, there's this bear in the tree. And he's looking up and there's a bear, and he's looking down and there's this tiger. So then, these are the days when animals could talk to humans, right? So the tiger is down there and he says, come on, it's my dinner time. I don't really care if I eat a man or a bear. So, one of you needs to come down and let me eat you, because it doesn't matter to me which one. So he's telling the hunter, why don't you just grab the leg of that bear and just pull him down and you'll be all right and I'll just eat the bear. And so, this is like the dilemma, right? The existential dilemma. And so the hunter grabs the leg of this big bear, pulls the bear down, and the bear just caught himself on one of the lower branches of the tree and didn't fall into the jaws of the tiger. So then the tiger starts saying to the bear, did you see that? Did you see that? He just tried to pull you down so I could eat him. So you should just pull him down and I'll eat him. So this is the conversation, So, yeah. Can't remember how that part ends, but anyway, so Sita says to Hanuman, so I'm not like that cruel hunter, and she says, these ladies are just serving their king. They're just serving their king, and no, you can't kill them. They're just doing what they think is right according to their law, their tribe, right? So yeah. So just to close this part, and then we'll have a little time for reflection and then discussion. But so this is to me kind of on the point of righteous dharma, third chakra, doing the right thing, following our intuition of our righteous self. So this is a native from the Sioux tribe, Native American saying, that the longest journey you will ever take is the journey from the head to the heart. Isn't that beautiful?